16th of July, 2023. 7 students embarked upon an ambitious expedition amongst the Scottish Islands. They had little idea that the next 4 days would be the most tumultuous week of their burgeoning lives. Adam Clayton, Adam Bradshaw, Nicodem Georgiak, Ben Davies, Thomas Lee, Oliver Buckley, Xander Roberto, and of course, Alfred the Chair. Tears, terror, and tomfoolery. In this innovative documentary, we combine interviews with those involved with never-before-seen footage to bring you the true, unfiltered, untold story of how a group of friends, over the course of 4 days of complete isolation from civilization, were pushed to the very limits of their sanity. "8 a.m., Friday the 14th of July. The first half of the group set out on their way to Scotland in high spirits. However, 8 hours into the trip, and they're only 15 minutes from the base camp, disaster struck. There had been an accident on the road, causing it to be closed, which resulted in them being unable to drive the final 15 minutes to the campsite. So, they had to drive for 2 hours around the loch before arriving at the campsite in the rain at 10 o'clock at night, after it had already fallen dark. The next day, the other half of the group joined them, after having an only slightly less eventful ride-up in which the bus broke down. First day, that was quite simple. So, we got dropped off, and we started things off, pretty well, going the wrong way. So we walked a kilometer in the wrong direction, being pointed in the wrong direction by the teachers. So we had to walk back, and then we started walking along our path. We got to this gravelly hill, and you know what they say about gravel. It's gravel. And as we were going up, Buckley something happened to his knee, and couldn't keep going. And so we had to sort of make a difficult decision to turn back, which, was not great for group morale. There was definitely a little bit of tension, strife, was clearly visible and present. But we got back, and then we got shuttled to probably the nicest campsite we went to, I'd say. It's just, it didn't really feel like it, when everyone's sort of wet, miserable, and cold, but it was quite a beautiful little valley. Nice little winding, desolate road going alongside of it. Alright, so, how did you feel at the start of day 1?
Yeah, good. I was not ready for day 1, I don't think.
How so? Describe to us what happened.
So, we set off, and it rained a lot, which was great fun, and I was slightly slower than most, so back for a lot of it, which was also great fun. And when Oliver sadly hurt his leg, we were not ready for that, I don't think, and the walking back was not fun.
The boys began the next day to rain. They trudged along the West Highland Way in the rain for the first 4 kilometers until they reached the Devil's Staircase, at which point the weather began to clear up. The sun emerged its face from behind the clouds, and slowly the boys' equipment began to dry as they trudged up the unrelenting hill. However, the devilishness of the staircase was in fact overstated. Upon reaching the campsite at approximately 4 in the afternoon, boys considered setting up their tents immediately, but then thought, why do that now when we could just sit down and relax, as the whole ordeal so far had been quite exhausting. For dinner, they had lentil dal, and with only a single spice,
some rice, and red lentils that had to be washed. It was a minor struggle. However, everyone conceded that it was at least mediocre. So, yeah, that was it. Yeah. Day 3 began with a challenge. The boys had to scale Mamor, a 217-meter tall hill. However, the rest of the day was relatively uneventful, and possibly even easy. However, internal tensions in the group began to mount, as a discussion over whether or not a burger is a sandwich or something else entirely began to rip the group apart.
Grass grows, sun shines, the birds sing, and burgers are sandwiches!
As Friedrich Nietzsche once said, burgers are sandwiches.
The boys began the final day with an adventure through some marshland. Although having dried their boots and socks the day before, they were soon reacquainted with the familiar feeling of moisture. Other than that, though, the day was relatively uneventful. They were too tired to complain and walked until they reached the ferry. After getting off the ferry, the boys ate the remainder of what was in Ben's bag for lunch. Then they finished the final leg of their journey, walking up to the meetup point where they would be picked up and returned to the campsite by the teachers. They had a barbecue for dinner that night with the rest of the people from the other groups, in which Nicodem cooked a lot of burgers. Then the next day, after much discussion, everyone got onto the minivans and the minibus and returned back to Sheffield.